All right, so here we go with our video lecture for chapter 12, dealing with the medieval age of Europe, which is the post-classical era of European history. So let's quickly identify, of course, that Europe is not a country. It is, in fact, a continent with a whole bunch of countries composed in it. We also should know that more or less the division. This would be Western Europe, right? So Italy, France, Germany, England, Spain, that's Western Europe. Eastern Europe will be over here, right? Greece, Russia, which is up here, Poland, those Eastern Europeans. Then we also have another division, which is South Europe, right, which is along the Mediterranean. And then there's North Europe, which would be in the North Sea or in the Baltic Sea, right, up here and up here. All right, so let's get started. So Constantine and the Edict of Milan. So if you're going back all the way to the classical era, we see that Constantine founds the converts to Christianity. He stops the persecutions, allowing Christianity to become popular, especially amongst the lower class slaves and the women of the Roman Empire. And eventually we know, of course, that Christianity will also become the official state religion. After this time, we have a monk called Saint Augustine, and he begins to combine the Greco-Roman teachings, the philosophy of the Greeks and the Romans, and combined it with Christianity. And he's trying to establish how that, the ideas of Plato and Aristotle and other Roman and Greek thinkers, how they can be related to or connecting to with Christian philosophy and Christian ideas. And in doing so, he expands the popularity of Christianity, especially amongst the intellectuals and nobles and upper class people of the Roman Empire. All right, then the Roman Empire collapses, right? And everything in the western half of Europe and the western Mediterranean, all of this kind of comes crashing down. And we see here the demographic effect of the collapse. All right, so the collapse around the year 476, which would be right about this point, and we see that there is a massive population drop, right, from the classical era to the post-classical era. Roman Empire's population is going to drop, and then it's going to steadily, slowly but surely grow back up, right? But it's going to take them a long time to reestablish to the same height that they had when, during Pax Romana. So, Western Europe is broken up into a whole bunch of small kingdoms, and these become known as the Germanic kingdoms because they're established by the numerous Germanic tribes that had invaded the Western Roman Empire. And these tribes and these newfound kingdoms were always fighting each other, trying to extend their power and their territory. The end result is that there's going to be very little trade because it's not going to be very safe to travel from one kingdom to the next because at any point you can get killed and that's about it. So we call this the collapse or the fall of the Western Roman Empire, and we see that all the advancements, all the incredible advancements of the Romans, like the aqueducts and the city planning and everything else and the road systems, all of those go away during this time in European history, which is called the Dark Ages. So here we see some of the different Germanic tribes. But these Germanic tribes, because of this warfare, they're going to trade less. There's not going to be merchants. There's not going to be cities because there's going to be limited agricultural surplus, which means that the farmers cannot provide enough food for the people in the city. So the cities of Western Europe are going to decline. And therefore, when we compare Western Europe to, say, India or to the Abbasid Empire, the Abbasid Caliphate, or the Tang and Song dynasties in China, Europe is very, very much fallen behind, right? There are no cultural advancements, there are no academic advancements. This is why they're calling this time the Dark Ages. The local economy, here you see, again, the fighting and the violence. Almost everyone is working as a farmer now because there's less craftsmen, there's less demand for trade goods, there's less cities, less merchants. We also see political decentralization. When these kings are fighting for each other or against each other, trying to gain more land, they tended to be unable to extend beyond beyond their kingdom. So we're not going to see like a centralized ruler in Western Europe pretty much ever again. So you know how Western Europe was unified under the Roman Empire. It never really returns back to unification, unlike China, which, after the Han Dynasty, it got reunited with the Tang and the Song and the Sui, or India with the Sultanate of Delhi. But Western Europe never really reunifies ever again. So we have these kings, and these kings, they're not going to have really a lot of power because they have to share it with nobles, with their lords. The lords manage the different territories of the kingdom on behalf of the king, and in return, the lords have power over their territory, and they could do whatever they want. And the peasants have to pay them taxes and food and supplies. And then the lords give some of their land to the knights, and the knights fight for the lords. And all serfs and peasants work for the people, work for the upper class. Population decreases. Less food means less people. So we see a collapse of agricultural surplus, a decline in population. With all the violence and destruction, people are going to die left and right. And we're not going to see, again, it's going to take about 800 years for the population of Europe to recover from the fall of the Roman Empire. Also, there's not going to be, because they're cut off from trade, we're not going to see a lot of the new tools and technologies or ideas that had started in different parts of the world, like in China, where we see the horse collar or the steel plow, or innovations about irrigation and using fertilizers. Those ideas, those inventions, those technologies don't reach Europe because, again, the Europeans are not trading anymore. And therefore, they're not going to take advantage, and they're not going to have that massive population growth that China, India, or the Middle East had experienced. Now, from all the different Germanic tribes, the main one we need to worry about are the Franks. And the Franks, of course, is where the name France comes from. But back then, they lived in the Roman territory of Gaul, and this is going to be the central part of their kingdom, Paris being their capital. Now, the Franks are credited for doing two things. One, they stopped the Muslims. So remember, the Muslims, they go from from southern Europe, Spain. They are trying to expand their territory into the rest of Europe, and they fight this famous battle called the Battle of Tours. And at the Battle of Tours, this guy right there, Charles the Hammer Martel, he's able to put an end to the Muslim expansion, and he pushes the Muslims, the Moors, back into Spain. Now, Spain, of course, remains under Muslim territory until the 1400s, but Islam does not spread into Europe or England or France or anywhere else. Only Spain. The second thing that the Franks were able to do is to kind of establish a empire, which becomes known as the Carolingian Empire, which is basically the Frankish kingdom. And they kind of ruled most of France, parts of Germany, parts of Italy, and they brought some sort of stability and political centralization. The main guy accredited for this, revival of the empire is Charlemagne. And in fact, he is given the title of emperor by the Pope, because the Pope is trying to bring back the Roman Empire as well. So Charlemagne, he is the founder of the Carolingians. He signs up and teams up with the Catholic Church. And now we see how the Germanic traditions and the Roman cultures are going to be blending, creating something new, which is Western European culture. And during this time, during his reign, Charlemagne, he encourages education through the church, which is going to become a popular idea throughout the Middle Ages. And he claims that he has the authority from God to be the king, to be the emperor. By being blessed and approved and being crowned by the Pope, he is legitimizing his authority, not just politically through force, but also religiously through the approval of God and the Pope. So this is the Carolingian Empire. Again, most of France, Italy, and parts of Germany. Right, this is the Carolingian Empire. It was the largest empire we're going to see in the Middle Ages of Europe, but it is very, very much short-lived. And they did have centralization. They had these administrators that were chosen by the Emperor Charlemagne. These administrators were known as the Missi Dominici, and these people were like the messengers. So they went around inspecting the local territories and making sure that the local lords and rulers and counts were, listening or doing whatever the emperor was telling them to do. During this time, we see expansion of education and art through the church. But then this guy Charlemagne, he dies, and then his son takes over. Then his son dies, and then his sons split up the empire between themselves, and then they start fighting against each other because each one wants to have the whole empire for himself. And then the Carolingian dynasty comes to an end, and the Carolingian Empire comes to an end, and centralized rule in Western Europe comes to an end as well. So we see the breakup of the empire. It breaks up into these three parts, these three kingdoms, and basically we can say,